Hey everybody, I am Tommy and you are on the boat. Chihuahua, narcoleptic Chihuahua production. Good to see you. Just Joan, Jeremy Fowler, what's happening? Lisa Trimble, how you been? On TKK, I'm glad you're here. Just Joan, Carolina, Canada, what's happening? Cindy G, how you been? Sorry. So let's get the show underway, shall we? Let's talk about some fun stuff. What do you think? So, Lisa Trimble, good to see you. How are you? Caroline in Canada, I'm glad you're here. Hey, Valerie, I'm glad that you're here as well. It's good to see you guys. So I've been deep diving. I'm going through a lot of stuff. And, one of the questions that we've had here since the very beginning of the time that I've started to talk about weird stuff and true crime, one of the big ones has always been the Jeffrey Epstein case. Alex Moore, good to see you. Hey, Kristen Melinda, my favorite people. I just cursed her saying that. You can't say stuff like that. People go nuts on them. I'm sorry. Can't stand her. So, hey, Alex, I have said a million times, where'd this cat get his cash? Remember this? This is a subject matter that comes up all the time. Where did Jeffrey Epstein get his money? Right? All of a sudden, the guy was just rich. There was, there's that Les Wexner connection, the guy that owned, the guy that owned Victoria's Secret. Seems to have done some stuff with the guy, right? He gave him a place to live, and he may have given him a jet as well, right? This was his one financial advisor, because being a substitute math teacher gives you all kinds of authority on things like advising someone on stocks and whatnot. Right? Are you with me? So, where'd the guy's cash come from? This is a recurring theme. It's something that we continually bring up. A funny thing happened while he was building a relationship with Bill Clinton. A funny thing happened during that period of time. And there's a lot of conspiracy theorists that talk about this stuff big time. And what this comes down to is during the Clinton administration, we saw Clinton. They talk about it all the time. People say, he built 27 new prisons while he was in office. That's BS. It's a statistic that people like to throw around all the time, but it didn't happen. 21 is the number that is realistic, and it is federal, right? Prisons or whatever that were built under him. But there were 213 new prisons built under Clinton altogether. And the crime bill of that he came out with, right? One of the big components of this crime bill was that automatic weapons were not going to be allowed anymore, or what they call assault-style weapons. This covers the AR-15. This covers the AK-47. This covers what the fellas on the streets call alphabet guns, sweepers, choppers. These are guns that put a lot of ammunition down range very, very quickly. They usually have very large capacity magazines, at a minimum 30, in some cases much larger than that. The assault weapons ban went into play in the United States right around the time that something very odd happened. There's a company called Southern Air Transport. If you're into conspiracy theories, or if you've been around a minute, this is a name you may have heard of in the past. And the reason you have is because of a guy named Barry Seals, right? And a lot of people know that name. Tom Cruise played him in a film. So did the guy from Easy Rider, whose name is escaping me right now. But he also played that character as well. Not Nicholson, but the other one. It's not there for me. But this is a character that's been played multiple times. And this was a guy who, during the Iran-Contra affair, was flying guns to Iran and bringing back blow. The blow was being turned over to a guy named Freeway Ricky Ross. And Freeway Ricky Ross was turning this stuff into crack and selling it in L.A. Or this is the theory, right, of the Iran-Contra affair, is that Freeway Ricky Ross was selling tons of blow in rock form, right? Now, why rock it up? Well, the idea was that you could sell this stuff in its crack form for considerably cheaper. And instead of this being the rich, snobby, twist up $100 bill and stick it up your nose kind of drug, it became a down and dirty, you can buy this for $10 and get higher than the cost of living. And it's one of those drugs that 5 minutes after you take it, you need to hit again. So it was a cash cow. Allegedly. Freeway Ricky Ross had made $12 million the day that he got caught. The end of his reign, he did $12 million that day slinging crack across the state of California. The idea was that Freeway Ricky Ross, because Ricky would jump on the freeway allegedly and cover long distances just stopping at cash houses. He had houses just to count money, right? Crack dealers would go over and dump bags full of cash in there, and then would go into counting machines and count the stuff up because he had to deliver it, allegedly, to the Central Intelligence Agency. That's right, CIA. You know, those initials that get you demonetized, like words like rape or all of the other ones. We stopped caring over here. We don't care. Central Intelligence Agency allegedly was responsible for the Iran-Contra affair under Reagan. They were bringing guns down to help fight the Sandinistas, right? Giving money, giving guns to the Contras, the rebels, to stomp out communism, blah, blah, blah. What happened to Southern Air Transport? Because this is a very interesting question. I read a pretty great book called One Nation Under Blackmail. It's a phenomenal freaking read. But this person has an angle on this. It's kind of fascinating. Why were there 213 new prisons built? Well, the crime bill, right, was making crack 10 to 1. In some states and in some cases 20 to 1. In other words, get caught with an ounce of cocaine and you get prosecuted this way. Cocaine's a powdered substance. You snort it up your nose, whatever. Get caught with the same amount of crack and they're going to charge you. So you got an ounce of blow, you got an ounce of crack. The ounce of blow is 28 grams. That's what they're going to charge you with. The ounce of crack, they're going to charge you with 280 grams. You only got caught with 28, but you're black, right? Keep it real. Statistically speaking, the people that were slinging that stuff, about 10 to 1, were black folk. So they passed a very racist law that incarcerated crap loads of black folks. And at the same time this is happening, right, with this 10 to 1 crack law, well, we got to build more prisons, right? Because we're going to be putting people away for a really long time. And on top of that, we got this assault weapons ban, right? Well, bring in Southern Air Transport. Southern Air Transport gets bought by and repurposed to China. Gets bought by who? Well, looks like Les Wexner. Yeah. Looks like he and Epstein, allegedly, have set up Southern Air Transport to now work out of China with some dirty folk inside China who are selling their SKS weapons. Now, if you're at all familiar with this, if you've been on the wrong side of the law, or if you've ever been incarcerated, you met a lot of people that were in prison for being caught with choppers, with street sweepers that were AK-47s, but they were not Kalashnikovs. The K in AK-47 stands for the name Kalashnikov. This is a guy that, had he been in any other country, he would have made more money than anybody in history because his weapons were used everywhere. It was one of the most simple designs of a weapon. It was indestructible. You could put it in oil. This was a video that they used to do for the AK. They would submerge it in oil, take it out, and roll it in the desert like a breaded cutlet, and then open fire. Brah! There's only literally one mechanism. It's one of the strangest weapons ever built. But the Chinese were knocking these off, and they're called SKS versions of it. It's an AK-47. It's just not a Russian-made AK-47. And they're usually considered trash. But if you're filling airplanes with them and bringing them to the United States to put them onto the streets illegally, you're basically an arms dealer, which allegedly is how Epstein came up with the cash to start this whole program. And allegedly, somewhere along the way, there was a conversation that went something like this. This is getting a little out of control, Jeffrey. Right? This would have been William Jefferson Clinton having this conversation. Maybe at the White House, maybe on one of their private jets. Who knows? But this was growing a little bigger than they were hoping it was going to, at least from a political standpoint. So picture a conversation like, I got an idea. And this is pure speculation on my part. Let's head down to my island in the Bahamas and we'll talk about it. There's some chicks down there. You'll have a good time. So he puts Clinton on this plane. Now, they met at the White House 27 times during this period of time. 27 times. For a dude who's got nothing to do with politics, that's disturbing. Right? But they share a love of women who are illegally young. Right? by all accounts, Epstein wasn't just peddling young women. He was very much into it, right? That's what got him hemmed up in Florida. Of course, in Florida, in comes one of the best attorneys that has ever lived. Alan Dershowitz comes into Florida to represent Jeffrey Epstein, who is caught, for all intents and purposes, banging 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, right? Really young women who he was paying to come in and give him massages, and then he was forcing himself on. He got weekends. Did you catch that? He got weekends. He had to go to jail on Friday night, right? He had to arrive before midnight. Now, waiting to go to prison for bank robbery, I met guys that were doing weekends. They make a ton of money. It's a great thing if you can get it, because the guys who are in there who aren't going anywhere would like you to bring something in every weekend. And they will pay you exorbitant amount of money to bring in drugs or to bring in whatever that you can secret in your prison locker, which of course is your rectum, right? So you're not probably bringing in cell phones and things like that. That would get a little difficult. Hey, Melrose, good to see you. KP and AZ, glad you're here. Whine a little bit more. How you been? So this guy gets a chance to just show up. Now, when they come in on Friday night, you think they show up at dinner time? They show up 2 minutes before midnight, because then they're going to get credit for Friday, even though they didn't really do Friday. And then on Sunday, when it hits 12:01 a.m., they're out the door. They're getting credit for all of Sunday. So they can now leave and go back to work. How do you get that deal? Well, the prosecutor and the judge both get really sweet appointments in government after this case is over. But we're going to see this shit again and again and again, where every time somebody seems to help these guys out in any way, they got a really sweet deal coming to them. A really, really sweet deal coming to them. Now, no one's heard any of this. This isn't something that people are talking about. It's in this book. But it isn't something that people are talking about. There's a lot of other really fascinating things that are coming up that sort of tie all of this into what's going on in the Diddyverse. But before we get into that, you take a little time off and you come back. And when I was really involved in this, we talked about Sean Combs and what Sean Combs was in trouble for. Now, the last time I was here, I was talking about how that doesn't happen anymore. Now we talk about content creators and stuff like that. But where did we go wrong? Where did we go from, you know what, this is not going to happen on my watch, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore, to Lamisha Fuller. You guys remember Lamisha Fuller? Lamisha Fuller was the woman that came out and did videos everywhere. Thank God, never on the boat. But she did videos everywhere where she told the story of how she was in that Dolce & Gabbana wife beater. And that was her on the table. Although she looked really white on that table, that was her. And she wasn't nearly as dark-skinned when she was younger as she told the story. She took 3 people's legitimate stories of being assaulted and stole it and said it was her. Then she threw in a little eyes wide shut. And she went on a tour where she bullshitted YouTube for a couple of months. Until we all started putting it together and we went, no, that's that Anna girl from Canada that's married to the hockey player. That's not you. That woman had to out herself, basically. Right? And when that time came, all of a sudden, Lamisha's busted. Now, do you think Lamisha did this on her own? Honestly, put a 2 in the chat if you think somebody put her up to it. Now, I'll tell you something. I watched her on a show while I've been, by the way, I've been sick as hell, man. I wanted to go live last night, but my entire family has something that resembles COVID. How's that? I don't care anymore. C plus math and all that shit. I'm not playing those word games anymore. Sorry, I digress. Anyway, I started going back through all the stuff we've talked about in Diddy, because I'll tell you something. What's been going on in the world has convinced me that we don't ever have a clue. We don't ever have a clue. We don't have a clue in what happened in the Karen Reed case. We don't. Now, there are times where you can look at something like the Karen Reed case, and you can say, you know what? We don't. There we go. I think I muted myself. We may not know what's going on, but we know that something really wasn't right with the prosecution. You feel me? There was something really wrong with how the prosecution went down, and that'll get you to stick around to see the rest of the case. And I think that's legit, right? That's what we're supposed to be looking for. But we jump real quick. We're ready to believe. We want to believe because we don't believe as human beings that there could be somebody so effing sick that they would come out and say, that man raped me, if that man didn't. Or worse, I've been raped by tons of white men. That's what Lamisha Fuller said, right? In fact, what was ironic, because I've watched all of the interviews this woman has done anywhere. And do you know, she sat there on film and talked about killing people. In her story, she talked about how she has been forced to kill children, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. They would keep coming back and having to do it again and again and again. She talks about literally bumping off dozens of people without an expression on her face. Like it was, we went to the store, we got some 7-Up, right? We got some Funyuns, we came back, we smoked a bowl, we ate the Funyuns. Like that kind of story, but she's bumping people off, according to her. But she freaked out and wept when she talked about how she was passed around as a toy to men. Maybe she was. She'd been arrested for prostitution a couple of times. Maybe that's something that was very real to her. But the story is complete and utter bullshit. It's just a lie. And the sad thing is, the more I watch the tapes, the more I realize that she's saying things like, for the longest time, I didn't even know if this was real. Okay, you know what? Maybe stop platforming her at that point. If she says, it's so great that all of you are basically justifying this, and you're all making me realize I haven't been crazy. I got news for you. If your stories that are coming out of your mouth, you truthfully believe, then you're crazy. No disrespect, but you're describing events that happen to other people. Now, if you believe they happen to you, that's a mental illness. Maybe don't platform it. But I farted around last night because I got this COVID crap and I can't sleep to save myself. So I started looking at videos of people in the Diddyverse, and I just started adding up views. I just started adding up views on big videos that are 100% bullshit, that there's no truth to whatsoever. One of them has 3.5 million views, and it is a lie. It is a bull-faced lie. Every part of it. Now, I won't advertise that, but I started doing math, and I'll tell you something. This is a $1 million industry. There are millions of dollars being made every day lying about this case. Lamisha Fuller was a liar. She went on a show where her guest was Adria English. This is terrifying because there's a lot of pundits that believe this chick is on the witness list for the Diddy case. I'm not an attorney. I'm a dumb convict. But you put Adria English on the stand, let me cross-examine that woman and I will destroy her. Because out in the Diddyverse, she went on a show with Lamisha Fuller and co-signed all of the craziness that this woman was talking about. And when I say craziness, don't think I'm being disrespectful, because if you were sexually assaulted, we're going to believe you until there's a reason not to believe you. She went on and talked about how mermaids who are actually demons, right? They're not real mermaids, they're demons. But these demons saved her from the deep when Diddy took him or her out to the middle of the ocean and dropped her in. But she would not drown on account of those lovely mermaids. Okay, you know what? You're platforming a psycho. I'm sorry. You're platforming somebody that needs some psychiatric care. But the line between mermaids, tunnels, and a lot of the other stuff, this is an industry now. And you may not believe this, but I never saw it as such. I really didn't. I saw it as some kind of I saw it like maybe we need to do this. Like maybe this is something that needs to be discussed because, hey, look what happened with Weinstein. Well, guess what? It didn't really happen with Weinstein. Did it? They didn't give the guy a new trial because the first one was solid. They gave him a new trial because the first one was feces. If you read the transcripts from those trials, you're going to go, oh my God. They could convict you as easily as they did Weinstein. And I don't care if you have a penis or a vagina. they could convict you as easy as they did Weinstein. Go read the transcripts from that case. It's absolutely horrific. But here we find ourselves on the blueprint to 2.0. Because I'll tell you something, sad but true. Diddy probably has a better team assembled to fight this. Now, Diddy's got some RICO stuff. RICO allows you to bring in previous prior bad acts that are not charged. They did that in the Weinstein case, which is why it got overturned. But they're going to do it in the Diddy case. And I promise you that the appellate team of Diddy is already writing the appellate to why they allowed those people to come in and testify against him if he wasn't going to have to be charged with an actual offense of these people. Adria English, who co-signed all of this bizarre stuff from Lamisha Fuller, has got the credibility at this point of me, right? Her past isn't going to allow a lot of people in a courtroom, on the bench, right, sitting there being cross-examined. She's going to get destroyed. How about the pizza man? Remember him? You guys put a deuce in the chat if you remember who I'm talking about when I say the pizza man. I'll give you his name for laughs, but Mr. Courtney Burgess. Now, you will remember, hey, B-Lady, you will remember that when I was on panels with Courtney Burgess, I called him out on this stuff. Because nothing that Courtney Burgess said made sense from the word go. Now, you find yourself in a weird position. Do you not platform that guy? Because he's telling the world he just went in front of the grand jury to give them freak-off tapes. How are you not going to platform him? Huh? He's also the guy who, I guess, after the fact, became the fall guy for that, the memoirs of Kim Porter. And I have no idea, by the way, if the memoirs of Kim Porter are real or not. I have no idea. But I'll tell you something. If I had Kim Porter's memoir and I put it out, the world will go, there's no way that's real. The people that put it out, Courtney Burgess, pizza guy, and Chris Todd. Chris Todd did it under the name Jamal T. Millwood as the co-author. And a lot of you know that whole conspiracy thing about Tupac, and a lot of money got made on that. Once again, this is a friggin' industry. And I'm not being disrespectful to anybody who's a content creator, I promise you. But Jaguar Wright got a presidential award for the stuff she's doing to expose Diddy, I guess, or to expose the music industry, right? In general. The music industry is so much more crooked than you think it is. You have no idea. Going back to the very first, I've been deep diving the crap out of this. You go back to the very first label in hip hop, Sugar Hill. Shocker, right? Sugar Hill was financed completely, allegedly, by the Lucchese crime family. It's a wild article that's been written about Tommy Mottola called Tommy Boy. Look it up and read it. This has been a gangster-run business from Jump Street. And it's the reason that I thought this is a fight worth fighting. But you get Lamisha Fuller, you get Adria English, you get Chris Todd. No offense, Chris. I know you're probably going to bum out that I said that. But the way all of this has been done stinks like vulturism. It stinks like people who are trying to pick a carcass clean for cash. It's fairly disgusting, honestly, in my opinion. And look, I'm not the, I didn't write the book about ethics and morals. Although I think it might be worth mentioning. I know that from time to time, we talk about some highfalutin stuff here on the boat. Not always, but from time to time. So if you've ever read Dante's Inferno, if you haven't, you should. Right? Dante's Inferno is one of the absolute great classics that should be read. But you've probably heard people use the phrase, even if you've not read the book, I'm in the ninth circle of hell, right? Because there are circles in Dante's Inferno. There are different levels of hell. And the things that that Diddy is accused of will land you in the eighth circle of hell. By the way, do you know who else ends up in the eighth circle of hell? Con men, oddly enough, end up in the eighth circle of hell. So for those of you who believe that's what I am, that's the eighth circle according to Dante. Do you know what the ninth circle is reserved for? Betrayal. It's reserved for people who tell you I love you and then stab you in the back. It's absolutely a book worth reading. It's fascinating. But there's a lot of vultures in this world who are currently making a fortune off of the Diddy verse. And the truth be damned, it has nothing to do with this anymore. I was searching for thumbnails today, and I'm afraid to put them up because I don't want to advertise these people. But you've probably seen the thumbnails. Diddy collapses in court, right, and has to be revived. How about that? What are the odds? I didn't hear about that. Diddy attacked in his jail cell. I need surgery. That's what they took him out for, apparently, was because he was stabbed, and we all didn't know this. It's got to be tempting to just bullshit. I mean, why compete with people that aren't telling you the truth? Huh? You want to know the answer to that? For real? The answer is actually quite simple. No matter what happens, the truth comes out. It does. And I know that there are people banging their fists right now going, yeah, it's what happened to you. No, it isn't. But the truth will come out. It's not going to be tonight. But it's going to come out. And when it does, there are going to be a lot of people who stand around dumbfounded. The number of cases against Diddy that just simply reading you will know are bullshit are terrifying. I'm going through them one at a time, and I'm reading all of them. And I don't think the guy's a good dude. I'm not coming back here to tell you what a great guy I think Diddy is, and we've got this all wrong. Diddy's a piece of crap. But we live in a society now where if somebody's a piece of crap, it's okay to make up whatever you want about them in order to destroy them. And honestly, we got in a feeding frenzy, didn't we? Honestly. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm going to pick one case. And forgive me, you know, if this person was assaulted the way that this allegedly went down, then I'm sorry in advance. But you start reading this after stepping out of the echo chamber, or as my ex used to say, like, you know, go back and look at this at a distance, right? Rise above it and look at it where you're not 2 feet away. The guy that got assaulted in the flagship store in New York, right? He was forced to his knees and forced to perform oral sex on Diddy while 3 of his bodyguards stood there. And if you actually read it, because what I did the first time was I read the excerpts. I read what the AP put out. I didn't go and grab it and read the entire thing. There wasn't a door separating him from the outside. There was a curtain. And I'm sorry, folks, but that doesn't pass the smell test. As a criminal, the boldness it would take to assault somebody with a pistol 1.5 feet away from an audience that, according to what was going on, there were hundreds of people there that were just waiting. If the guy screamed, there are so many of these stories that don't pass the smell test that as you start looking through them, you just go, oh, I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. Conversations that people recount that are way too much like movies, right? I want to tell you something. All of that stuff that people do when they're fighting and they talk about, you know, this is what you get for, none of that happens. Seriously, take this from a guy that may have been on the wrong side of the law on a couple of occasions. All of that Hollywood crap is simply that. The other thing I'm struggling with is this. I know what happens to criminals when they get scared, right? I don't care if you're a solid mother lover, I don't care who you are. You start getting scared and you start realizing that you're in trouble. You start realizing that there's a decent chance you're about to get put away for a long time. The number of people who are named in these suits that would be screaming forward right now to cut deals, to save their own asses. Where are all of these people? You start adding up numbers. I'm not kidding you. Bodyguards alone. There's like 7 or 8 different bodyguards that have been named, not Deal, not Gene Deal, but bodyguards who have been named as participating in some of this stuff. If you're one of those bodyguards, you are on the next train smoking to cut a deal to bury Diddy so that you don't get in trouble. And if you think all of these guys are so solid that they're just not going to do that. Now, the fear thing, okay, I'll give you a fear thing, right? Maybe he's afraid of the dude. But once the dude gets locked up, that starts going out the window. In my opinion, that starts going out the window. I don't think people are afraid of Diddy the same way they used to be. Got a lot less power when you're locked up in the feds. You're out of sight, you're out of mind kind of thing. By the way, I am waiting to hear back from Derek Lee Cardoa Smith. I have written several letters to him, and I am waiting to hear back from him. And I'll give you a brief synopsis of what I said in the letters, because here's my stance on this thing. The guy is a chronic con man. Now, that doesn't make you a rapist. He's running every con that an inmate can to try to get his case outside. I just want to say to him, look, everything you're doing is a hustle. And I want to hear his response to that. I'd like to just hear him say to me, yeah, you know what, it is, but here's why. And then I'd be willing to fight for the dude. And there are other people that are coming forward. But today, the people that I was talking about the last time we were live, they were live today, shitting on Jaguar, right? Why? Because it pays. It's paying. Now, just because, and I'm not trashing a content creator. You guys know how I feel about everybody involved. I don't trash content creators. But because this is now a very large part of this story, there's a group of people out there that believe that Jaguar Wright is behind everything in the Diddyverse. In other words, Lamisha Fuller and Courtney Burgess and Adria English. These are, and the other one, whose name I can't think of right now, Allie Carter. These are all creations of Jaguar Wright in order to make Jaguar's story better. This is a popular, by the way, I don't necessarily adhere to any of the stuff, but I'm telling you what's going on right now. This is the narrative, right? That Jaguar has taken this and made the Diddyverse a cash cow. As many of you are aware, you can command money to be on someone's panel. I have never taken $1 to go on someone's panel because I'm not important enough to command that kind of money. I'm an opinion guy. I'm a guy that looks at the case and gives you an opinion. These people, Lamisha Fuller, Adria English, Courtney Burgess, not so much Chris Todd, but Courtney Burgess, their claim to fame is the proximity to these people who are famous. What you will find when you start pulling this apart, like the Courtney Burgess thing, this man is 100% bullshit. There is nothing about Courtney Burgess that he told us that I can document. Nothing. This is a guy who came on and said, they came to my house and raided it. They had a search warrant. 3 days after he made that statement, he went on a nationally syndicated television show with his attorney. And they said, was there a search warrant served at your house? No. No search warrant. 3 days earlier. And then he went on to tell a content creator online that he could produce the search warrant to show that, yes, in fact, he had a summons, right? You get summoned to go to court. And he was summoned to bring with him all of those tapes that he had. There were 9 of them, remember? He started out, he said there are 9 tapes. And on it, I think there were eight people altogether. But then as he starts to tell the story, the numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger. No story he told from one show to the next was correct. I'll tell you my opinion, because I'm just telling you an opinion. That's all it is. It's an opinion. Chris Todd and Courtney Burgess got together. And Courtney Burgess, sorry, not trying to be disrespectful, but of the two of them, I think that Chris Todd's probably got a little bit more brain pan. And I think he set this guy up to kind of be a patsy, because Chris Todd, who had the manuscript, he's the man that sold millions of dollars worth of this, well, $1 million anyway, right? Worth of this manuscript. Courtney Burgess's name wasn't on it. He was going to get the rights to sell it in Europe. That was the deal. But for that, who did we see on all the talk shows? And what has he done? He's buried himself, folks. I'm going to be shocked if he doesn't catch charges. Do you remember when the attorney came out, Ariel Mitchell? She came out right in the early days of the Diddy case, and she said, someone has reached out to me, and they have a freak-off tape. It was what we commonly call a catch and kill, right? You don't want, let's say you're running for president, and they got a tape of you and some girl that you were with in college, and you're doing the beast with two backs. To get that killed, a political party will say, we'll buy it. We'll buy the story for $250,000. Now there's a newspaper bidding $300,000 on it. You say, I'll give you $500,000. You don't have to run the story. You can buy it and destroy it. It's called a catch and kill. And the theory is that this is what was happening. There was a catch and kill brought to Ariel Mitchell. The catch and kill had to be the Courtney Burgess tape, right? It had to be. He brought her a tape that's got people on it or whatever. Now, I'll tell you my opinion. And again, this is just an opinion. You know what's on that tape? People having sex. I don't think there's underage people on it. I don't think there's any of the BS that this guy was telling us. Because if there was, number one, he'd be locked up. Here's your story. Hey, I got given some child porn and I held on to it for 8 years. Guess what? You're going to prison for a long friggin' time. You can't possess CP and not get arrested for it when you turn it over. I mean, if you said, hey, some freak dropped this off at my house. I saw what it was. I'm here. 17 minutes later, take this. Get the guy that did it. I took this. I held on to it for 8 years, and I decided now that I'm going to try to sell it. But since I can't sell it, now I'm ready to turn it over to the government. Well, that sounds like BS to me. But we spent 2 or 3 weeks talking about this flake. Right? We spent weeks talking about this flake. He got platformed. I was on panels with him. And I know this is YouTube, sadly. It really is. And the worst part of this is that this guy's a predator. He's a no BS, dyed in the wool, right? Handed down to him by people more powerful than him. Predator. He didn't invent this game. And the overlap between all of the people that seem to know one another in this game. By the way, you guys know what payola is? It's a fascinating case history on Clive Davis. So the payola scandal was back in the day. There was no internet. There was no anything, right? So what made a song popular was if you heard it on the radio and you went, boy, that's great. You call the radio station back, say, hey, you got to play that more. That kind of thing was a big deal, right? So you could pay a DJ to play a record. Say, here's $5,000. You need to play the hell out of this one. Well, it was a great way to make a band very popular. And people got caught for it. It's not legal. And a bunch of people ended up getting bounced out of music for the payola scandal. This was the early 60s, 62 or 61, I think was the payola scandal. Years later, this hasn't stopped. They're still paying people to play music, but they're getting a lot better at it, right? You don't leave a freaking paper trail of money that they can chase back to you so you get busted. So step in Clive Davis. Allegedly, Clive came up with a much better way. Seems that a lot of DJs get high. So why don't you find out what the local DJs are addicted to? Because most of them were. This was Clive's theory. And it turned out that a lot of them were either doing blow or heroin. So he would just hook them up with heroin. No joke. You can research this. Google it, right? Google this stuff. You'll come across it. But he ends up dodging a bullet, but he kind of gets shoved out of a couple of different record labels because of it. And it's kind of what gave him the chance to really start pushing and going into hip hop. But if it worked for you up to that point, if using sex and drugs and money, right, as a way to blackmail people and a way to push your agenda through, wouldn't you teach your little mentor? Especially if he's blowing you, not being disrespectful. But by all accounts, Diddy was a boy toy to Clive Owens. Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know. Clive, I guess, likes the... anyway. But this is pretty crazy stuff. It really is. It's insane. And the trouble is, at this point, we don't have a clue anymore what's real and what's not. And it's sad. It's sad that there are people out there. Monk. What's happening? Hey, Sonny. Good to see you. Lisa Trimble, sleep well. Jay Rambo, good to see you. My dad was a DJ back in the day, and he would play vinyl that the artist would bring in but didn't take cash for. Well, I respect that. And you know what? It had to be hard not to, because it was just such a part of the music industry. This was something that was happening. We live in a world today, folks, where we're getting lied to 24/7. You hear me? We're getting BS'd 24/7. And the reality is, we have to be smart enough to say, I don't know. And it's not something that we like to say, but I'm going to say right now, I don't know how guilty Diddy is. I know that the guy, I mean, he beat the crap out of Cassie Ventura. We saw it, right? And I believe Cassie's stories. And you don't pay a woman $35 million who you were not abusing. $35 million. Took you less than 24 hours to settle when you saw that case. That, to me, screams guilt. Right? $35 million. This wasn't a $3 million lawsuit. This was $35 million. I don't care what you're worth. That's a crap load of money. And I believe a lot of the people who have said, I watched him beat on her. That's good enough for me. But was he banging every kid under the age of 13, every single place he went? Because they would lead you to believe that if Diddy walked into a room and there was a person in there that he was capable of raping or sexually assaulting, then he did. I don't know. I really don't. But I do know this. I used to believe that you couldn't just say whatever the hell you wanted, right? You couldn't just BS a story without there being some kind of repercussion. 2 days ago, we talked about the Rick Harrison thing on YouTube. You think those videos have been taken down? No, they're killing it. They're monetized and they're killing it. Because I guess, apparently, you can't say the word rape because they're going to demonetize my video for saying that. Or saying cocaine or heroin or any of those things. But I can lie to you, right? As long as I don't curse, as long as I don't say any of the 700 buzzwords that YouTube doesn't want me saying, I can lie to you, right? I can lie to you. I could come on here and say whatever I want about whoever I want. It's YouTube. It's pretty jacked up. So I'm going to be ramping back up on the boat. I'm going to be doing a lot more content because I miss you guys. And I'm not BSing. That's really what it comes down to. I do miss this. And there's something liberating about the fact that I'm able to speak and say, that like you can't know the frustration of saying things like C+ math instead of COVID, or not being able to say rape or sexual assault. I mean, these are subjects that we talk about all the time. How do you run a drug program and not say the word heroin or cocaine? Right? I got to call stuff Bolivian marching powder, and I got to play all of these stupid games, man. Hey, look at this. You can say bad things about me. Biz, I got nothing bad to say about you, my brother. I got nothing bad to say about you. So I'm gonna be firing this thing back up. so that we all have an opportunity to hang out. We're going to be talking about some different stuff, a little bit more diverse. I'll tell you something. I don't know how to say this right. I have, especially when I was younger, I was graced with a really ridiculous memory, or cursed. I don't know, but I got a memory that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around, and because of that, I think that there are some basic stuff that people need to know in order to have conversations that are intelligent, and sometimes we don't have any idea about them. You know what I mean? Tell you what, stick around and watch. You know what? Photographic probably isn't the right word. I don't know how to explain it. You wouldn't believe me if I did. Photographic isn't the right word. I don't have a photographic memory. It's probably audiographic more than anything else. Things that I hear. So I got to a place where I learned how I learned. And once I realized, like audiobooks for me are a trip, because I can listen to an audiobook at about 4 times the speed that I can read it at. Right. So I can bring in really large amounts of information really quickly through audiobooks, and then usually I can spit it back out. But I think that there's a little bit of history and some stuff that I would like to go over. I'm going to be talking a lot more about the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm going to be talking a lot more about the fact that our prison system at this point is an absolute nightmare. And it is a nightmare of our own design. This isn't an accident. Clinton built 213 prisons for a reason. And I remember being on the Unicorn line and I was building blouses for the Air Force. The khaki off-duty blouse was my line. 2 lines down, we were building uniforms for the Israeli army. 2 lines down, it was some other country. If you make military uniforms, how do you compete with a company that is paying their staff 15 cents an hour? Right? Or 40 cents an hour for the high-skilled workers. The high-skilled workers are making about $0.50 an hour. How do you compete with that? Because in the real world, the guy or a gal who is proficient on these kind of sewing machines, these are not jokes. These are pretty heavy-duty stuff to run. But those people get about $30 an hour. How are you going to compete? Well, you can't. You absolutely can't. And there's a lot of other shit that we do. Victorville, in the federal system, all of the Humvees that were coming back from the war would get recommissioned at Victorville. Imagine how much money you save, huh? Getting slave labor that will literally, I was going to say something really foul, that will bend over backwards with a huge smile on their face, wait online at 5 o'clock in the morning, 365 days a year, until you give them an opportunity to work as a slave. Because it beats the hell out of just sitting around doing nothing. It's disturbing what we've done. We are, in the United States, we make up 4% of the population of the earth. We got a lot of land, but we're only 4% of the population of the earth. We're 26.5% of the prison population of the planet. 26.5% of all of the people incarcerated on earth are in America. Yet we make up 4% of the population. If you're not good with math, Jay Rambo says, Tommy, I know you have trouble watching movies, but you were able to watch Blink twice. It's my understanding Jaguar nodded to being based on Diddy parties. This is a fascinating, the whole Blink twice thing. One of the problems with Blink twice is it is getting used. Hey, Rip, it's getting used again and again and again and again by people lying. These stories come back, right? Lamisha Fuller was the best. She really was. I mean, as far as just outing it, Lamisha Fuller's stories were absolutely incredible. And I mean that in like the definition of the word, right? Like the credibility is gone. And you know what? This is sad. It's sad because the stories now that have come out, it's like, if you guys are hip, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Operation Blue Book. Operation Blue Book allegedly was designed to tell us stories about UFOs, UFO abductions, alien encounters, stuff like this. So that, and it was effective, because if I say, hey, there's a person who was abducted by aliens, you're going to go, yeah, did they have a six-pack of Genesee and were they fishing late at night or was it in a trailer park near, there's always some sly comment they make to make it sound like the person is either not wealthy or not intelligent or not whatever. But that was by design. So that anytime somebody brings up UFOs, we go, oh, it was one of those, right? Like a flat earther or one of the, you're just nuts. Whether they're meaning to or not, there is an entire group of people that are doing this to the victims of Sean Diddy Combs. We were horrified when this story broke. We were horrified at the things that this man had allegedly done. Now when a story breaks, we laugh. For real. Guys go, oh my God, boy, this is the worst one yet. Because they're not real anymore. Even if they are, there's so much BS that's been slung into this. The most recent filing talks about that tunnel, right? At Star Island. Do you know where Star Island is? Huh? It's a freaking island. You're going to dig a hole under your house to put in a tunnel? You dig down 4 feet and you're going to be in water. There's no way they put a tunnel under Star Island. No way. It's also a very new development. You can pull the blueprints. Won't cost you a dime. There's no tunnels under that. And these stories are eroding the fabric that people no longer believe. You know that there's a whole group now? There is a groundswell of people who are saying, you know what? This might just be a con. I don't think it's a con. We saw him beat the crap out of Cassie Ventura. It's not a con. But keep bullshitting, and the world's going to believe it is. Because that's how it works, isn't it? You know what I mean? How many times do you have to see something that's so bizarre, so unbelievable, that you go, wait a second. Every guy you've ever dated has been a psycho that wants to kill you? How many times can you see the same line of shit before you start going, this doesn't make sense? Well, maybe running an 800 number and saying, have you been assaulted by Sean Diddy Combs? I think there were probably too many people that saw that press conference and went, how much did he pay Cassie? $35 million? I was alone with him in 93. I was alone with him in 97. I went to one of those parties. 4 people saw me there. You understand? It doesn't take much. It doesn't. Remember the study we talked about the other day, the Milgram study? How long does it take to turn somebody who shows up thinking they're doing a study on memory and turn them into a killer? Well, if you have a lab coat on, right, it takes about 5 minutes. How long does it take for a person to go, I hate him, or I hate her? That's it. If you take the time to research some stuff, it's probably going to take a little longer to say I hate him. Harvey Weinstein's a bad guy. I don't think Harvey Weinstein's guilty of what they put him in prison for. And if that doesn't make you sick, then you need to check yourself in the mirror. It doesn't matter how bad a guy he is. Is he in prison for something he didn't do? Because that's effed up. If he's that bad a guy, put him in prison for something he did. Shouldn't be hard. Right? 103 women showed up day one. Of course, they all thought he had a ball sack. That's kind of a problem. I'm sorry, but you couldn't have made me believe 3 months ago that you could round up 100 women to lie about somebody raping them. You couldn't have convinced me of that. In one case, you were able to round up 100 women who couldn't identify this man's very peculiar anomaly. Right? When it comes to his anatomy, the guy didn't have testicles in the normal sense of the word. They had been hidden, one in his left thigh and one in his right thigh. They literally dug out little places to put them in, put skin grafts over it. He didn't have a sack. Now it's graphic, but whatever. It's a great question, Elated Sparkle. It's a great question. But like, how can people go on a platform and lie to everyone when they know it's a lie? It's weird. It's so weird to me. Well, here's the thing. Different people go on platforms for different reasons. And for a lot of people, this is about making a living. And when you're on a platform where there are individuals who spend all day long firing back and forth at each other, people get paranoid. People get weird. They start looking at their numbers dropping. They start worrying about whether or not they're going to be making a living. And they start looking for ways to protect themselves and to insulate themselves from other damage. And maybe going on a platform and saying, you know what? That Rip Curl Readiness is no good. Let me tell you what a bad guy he is. Because if you all start looking at Rip, well, then maybe you're not looking at me. Trust me, there's a whole lot of that goes on. And you may not believe this, but I feel sorry for the people. For real. Because this isn't, nobody starts out on YouTube to be that person. Nobody sits around and comes up with plans for how they will destroy people as a way to make a living. It doesn't start that way. People start YouTube because they think they got something that they want to tell the world and they think it's important. And then the financial part of it comes creeping in. And pretty soon, you won't use the word rape, or you won't use the word cocaine, or you won't use the word heroin, because these things are going to make it so you can't make a living. And I'll tell you something. I'm not a brave, whatever. I just, this is no longer my primary source of income. If it was, I would probably be calling it Bolivian marching powder. I'd be saying SA and grape and all of those words. And you know what? It's frustrating to beat crap if you're a person who speaks for a living and then finds out that there's 100 words that are part of the vocabulary you're going to need on a day-to-day basis if you want your channel to make sense, and you're going to have to come up with something else to say. You know what? Miss me with that. So to those who have to worry about those numbers, my heart goes out to them, because it will turn you into something you're not. And you know what? A lot of you already know that. Here's the thing with YouTube. Here's the thing with anything, right? Somebody comes out and destroys you, right? And you feel unbelievable shame. Don't mess that up with guilt. Do you understand the difference? Guilt is something you feel inside, right? I feel guilty for something I did. I shouldn't use the C word. Not a nice word. And I feel guilty inside for things that I've done. Shame is outside. That's external. That's what the world does to you. Richard Jewell, right? Atlanta, the Olympics. The guy finds a bag and he tells people about it. Now, why would a guy do that? Well, maybe because he just wants to be a hero. Well, that's the narrative, right? He put the bomb there and he just wants to be a hero. Destroyed the man's life. Literally, absolutely destroyed the man's life. Because everybody immediately jumped to the conclusion that this guy, Richard Jewell, right, was a bad guy. He was a bad dude. They were wrong. In fact, he was a hero that saved shitloads of people's lives that night. But that ain't going to be the narrative. You understand? That's never going to be the narrative. As we move forward, right? These are concepts, folks, that I promise you we're going to run into some trouble with a lot of people who are going to be saying a lot of whatever. A lot of you have reached out to me, by the way. A lot of you liked the last show. Some of you have reached out and said, you know, that you would like me to get a little payback. And I understand the sentiment. I really do. And I guess everybody assumes that there probably is a wealth of knowledge I could be dumping. It's not going to be about people who create content. I promise. Now, that said, everybody has a breaking point. Right? God works all things for the, yeah, I'll give you that. I give you that. So I'm going to be doing some content going forward, and we're going to talk about some things that normally would really, really put us in trouble with the censors, and I don't care. I'm going to be talking an awful lot about this book here. If you guys want to start reading it, this is a book worth reading. This is Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s. That book is absolutely phenomenal. It's about a hell of a lot more than Charles Manson, but it's going to get us, it's going to give you an idea of just how long we've been off the rails. I'll tell you something disturbing as crap. If you really take a good hard look at the at what they did to Manson, again, you think Charles Manson's a good guy? I'm the last dude in the world that's going to come here and make a plea for Charles Manson. He's dead, obviously, but Manson got convicted on some evidence that was really amazing. It really was. If you look at the case, he never put on one witness. He didn't put on a defense. What they did to Manson was incredible. Normally, if you're not at the crime scene, if you're not there when somebody got killed, you were looking at about 18 years. He wasn't there, according to them, when people got killed, right? They couldn't put him at any of the crime scenes during the murders or anything else, but he got life. It was a very strange case. And while Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor, was prosecuting it, his co-author was sitting in the front row taking notes for the book that he knew he was going to write. Everything that happened, that man should have been disbarred. It's a pretty wild story. By the way, he's a wife beater, according to the book. Anyway, sorry, just got a text. Also, some of you will reach out and say, so-and-so said this, meaning somebody that used to be a part of our little sphere of influence or whatever. I don't care. I want you to know I really don't. I don't look at content people make about me. I don't look at content of people that I used to watch, right? I don't. It's a lot easier not to. So if you're reaching out to tell me what somebody has said about me, do me a favor and save that. What people say about me is none of my business. If you think I'm what everybody says I am, well, that'll get me to the 8th circle of hell. The people that are talking about me, they'll be in the 9th. Between now and the next time I see you, do me a huge favor and reduce a little harm. Please. See you on the next one. God bless.